Today on the show, we have a guest that's going to talk to us about achieving our full potential, overcoming limiting beliefs and roadblocks. Learning from her story of personal struggle to becoming extremely successful in finance, technology, and real estate. My next guest, Adapia on the show, coming up.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and to reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now, your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome back to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Adapia. She is a serial entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and author. Her book is Productive Intuition, Connecting to the Subtle. Adapia, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
Hi, Dwaine. I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Really looking forward to it. Like I had mentioned as we started, right before we started recording, really read through your background, kind of looked through kind of some of the passages in your book. It's a great read, and we'll definitely be talking a little bit more about that. And the really big thing that you talk about that I'm really attracted to is kind of like you're able to tap into your full potential, and and then going through your story and roadblocks and able to kind of go through it, which I know a lot of listeners will be connecting with as well as myself. So glad to be digging into that. Before we get into that part of the interview, would you mind kind of sharing with the audience your background, how you got started, and a little bit about your story?
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. I got my start working. I was always like a very ambitious kid. I wanted to succeed. I wanted people to be proud of me, especially my dad. So I was daddy's girl. And, ever since I was really little, after I got over wanting to be like a paleontologist and a marine biologist, because I love nature, I flipped into, I'm going to be a lawyer because I want to be really successful. But by the time I got to college and I started taking like a Bachelor of Arts, like heading towards that, I knew that was not going to be for me. And at the same time, it was back in the 90s. So I'm going to date myself, late 90s, when mutual funds were starting to be kind of a bigger thing for retail investors. And through a series of chance meetings, I got into the investment space and I got really interested in it. And so when I was 18, 19, I actually started working in a bank. I applied for this accelerated program. And so I got my start in banking, and it really clicked for me. It really clicked along this idea of financial independence as a form of like total independence. I really understood that was very, very important, and it was far more interesting to me than a Bachelor of Arts. So cue all the way forward, I ended up working in my career. I started in banking, financial planning. I got all my securities, CFP, all that kind of stuff from a really young age. Then I went to Europe on a university exchange, stayed in Europe for 11 years, worked in insurance. I worked at a hedge fund. I was actually at the hedge fund when the crash happened, when the market crash of 2008 happened. And then I took a total U-turn shortly after for personal reasons, mostly because I think, as we know, personal life, we can't separate it from professional life. Like, it has a really big impact. And I actually did a 180, and I went into business with my sister right at the height of the downturn. And that's when I started to become an entrepreneur. And that business was around art and licensing, and actually consumer brands and products and marketing. And so we started with a MySpace page. So like, that's how far back this goes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The beginning of Twitter, the beginning of Facebook. And I was so excited by all these new things happening. And, we had this saying, we were just like, we're just going to show up when you think no one else is going to show up. And we also had nothing to lose at that time. So we created this business, created a global brand for her. And we started using, because I love technology and I love anything new, we started using Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And that's what got me into crowdfunding to begin with. So in 2012, I moved to Los Angeles. So I had been in Europe for 11 years, moved to LA, got into the Silicon Beach tech VC startup scene, and the Jobs Act passed. And so I started learning about equity crowdfunding. And so all of a sudden my finance background hat came on and said, you can turn your fans into shareholders. So that's what got me interested initially. And even though that whole element of the Jobs Act didn't really pass until Regulation CF in 2016, it got me interested. And in 2013, I got into the real estate crowdfunding industry. I joined one of the very, very early firms called Patch of Land as employee number one. Grew it from 3 people to 40 people, did the whole venture capital raising, flying around the country, being an advocate and an evangelist for real estate crowdfunding. And I've been in the real estate space ever since, in different roles and in different companies. And then a few years ago, I joined Alpha Investing, which is more of private equity on the equity side of the capital stack, essentially on the commercial side. So that's like a quick, brief overview. But to me, I realized at one point a couple of years ago that when I was younger, I had this idea of what success looked like, of what a successful businesswoman looked like, what I would look like. And in my head, I had this little briefcase. But in reality, I work from home. So, even before COVID, like we were doing things electronically and conferences and I realized like I had everything I thought I wanted, but it didn't have to be on corporate Wall Street with a briefcase. And so I just had this really like big moment a couple of years ago. And I said, you know what, Adapia, you got everything you set out to do, just doesn't look exactly what it looked like in the 80s or the 90s. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We have a lot of similar backgrounds where I'm like, I kind of got my hands in a lot of different ventures and stuff. And I always wanted to, be successful in different ways. And you had mentioned kind of that corporate image of this is what, success looked like. I remember in high school, I had a little briefcase myself and I was just kind of, wearing my suit and tie and stuff. And I just wanted to kind of look the part and I guess to, in my mind, trying to, image it and push it there. But you also mentioned as far as kind of fast forwarding over to your book, that little transition where you had some kind of roadblocks or, kind of like deciding where you wanted to go next. Because I know a lot of people, especially me, kind of had that kind of time period where I said, well, what I really want to do. And it seemed like you kind of shed some of the layers to focus on what, fits, suits your lifestyle. What did you want? And, what's best for you? Can you kind of talk about where some people kind of struggle in that scenario of kind of making that switch to find out what's best for them and then how they're able to, because you had so much experience in doing so much different things.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a great question. It's a big question. And I think, when you're in it, and when I was in it, I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just moving forward. I have a tendency to not stop. And so if there's a challenge, if there's something, I might take a minute because sometimes they're really big challenges. And then afterwards, it's just like a reset. And it's kind of like, especially if it's something bad, it's kind of like an F this. I'm going for it anyway. So I have a tendency in my particular personality also to be more of a risk taker. So I kind of shoot first, ask questions later, which, works sometimes, also doesn't work. So, taking that for what it's worth, because everybody has different ways of relating to themselves and the world. But with the roadblocks, to me, with all of the ones that I've had, and I've had numerous ones, including just not being able to find my place professionally. Like I couldn't find my place. When I moved to Europe and I lived in Italy, I couldn't find what I thought I wanted from a career perspective. And even by the time I got to the hedge fund and I was in Switzerland at the hedge fund, it wasn't what I thought I wanted. It wasn't what I expected. And I had to continuously battle myself, my own expectations. So most of the time we think it's something else out there, but it's actually our own expectations and limitations. And so the most important thing is examining those and examining our own assumptions and coming out the other side and realizing that, whether it's a block or an opportunity, it's completely up to us to take it as one or the other. So instead of seeing a challenge as something bad, you see it as an opportunity for something better. And I think I was naturally doing that until I started to be able to understand the mechanism by which I did that. So I know I'm saying a lot, but what I'm trying to get at is it's about our attitude towards what is like happening out there, because from our internal perspective, it informs the way that we act towards it. Whether
Mm,
we run away from it, whether we go hide, and like I've had negative reactions to all kinds of things, because it's like that's not what I wanted, and you label it as bad, and really what you have to do is lean into it and
mm,
realize that it's actually what looks like an obstacle is actually a door to what you really want, and it's asking you to level up and move through it, because it's just a mirage.
mm. Oh
That's
yeah.
my experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very. Yeah. It's very deep, and I like how you kind of said it that way, and kind of leaning towards that, where it's kind of going full force into whatever that is. Different opportunity, relationships, and business opportunities. A lot of things I talk up to a lot about is kind of attraction, because once because it seems like you take a lot of action. You've been in different industries, and now you're in in the height of real estate on the private equity side. For people that kind of always talk about this subject of the law of attraction, because once you take that action, your
Mhm.
mindset is clear, you know what you want, all of a sudden things start happening for you, or like you set your standards for certain relationships, you'll attract certain spouse or
Yeah.
girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever it is, and certain things for business opportunities. Can you kind of talk about the subject of the law of attraction once you make that hurdle to decide that you're going to take action to do something?
Yeah, the way I think about the law of attraction is that where we place our focus is what we're going to get. So this idea of energy flows where your attention goes. And so if your thoughts and your energy are focused on things that are, and I use quote unquote negative because I have a very kind of specific way of thinking about something that is negative, because it's really not. It's just how we label it. So that's one other whole other thing, is how we use our words, and how we define words and give meanings to events. But the where we place our focus and how we place our focus is really important, because we have so much power in how we use it. And so
Hmm.
the whole law of attraction is also related to, you might be attracting something towards you because on a really deep level, and I'm going to say it this way, on a soul level, there are lessons you are meant to learn.
Hmm.
And
Oh
until
yeah.
you really learn that lesson, you're actually going to continue to magnetize towards you different kinds of people, different kinds of situations that are the same lesson in a different form, until
Absolutely.
you do the thing that breaks the spell and teaches you the lesson. It's kind of like a video game. It's like you capture the coin or whatever that is, your sword, your power, and then the lesson is complete. And that lesson will not continue to come around. And to me, the most important thing is knowing yourself. This is why I do so much work around self mastery and self awareness. And I have a really deep contemplative practice. And so it's really understanding myself, so that when things out there kind of come towards me, I can better control myself and manage the situation. And when you clear the things that need to be cleared, so that you're fundamentally realizing that is going to nothing's going to take you down. It's truly just meant to level you up. The whole law of attraction becomes a game. You're like,
Hmm.
well, I want to do this because I want to, because I think it's going to be fun. In like, for me, a few years ago, I talk about this a lot, where I had burnout. Like, I burnt out. I was, top of my career. I was COO of a fintech firm,
Hmm.
and it looked fancy, my ego loved it, a big title, all the things, but it just wasn't a good situation for me. And I went into a huge, like, just massive burnout, where once I left, I tried to do my own thing. I tried to do all these things that I thought were more meaningful to me, but none of those things were working out too. And I found myself not making money, super scared, like, what is going on? And finally, I just had to, and this was the point of everything changing. I had to look inside myself because I had built my entire identity around being a successful professional. And that whole identity just, it totally disintegrated. And I had to build myself back up by figuring out, for me, what is success? What are my values? What do I want from business partners? What do I want from business? What do I want from life? And strangely, for the amount of like inner work I thought I was doing, I clearly hadn't done enough to really be able to express what those values were, which are actually a lot of boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then what happens is I magnetize, this whole law of attraction, the current firm and my current partners, where there's this amazing alignment with them. It's, and we've been like, the company has been just growing so fast since I joined. And it's not because of me, but it's because we work so well together. And that's what I was looking for the whole time, was good partners. But I had to do the inner work to bring them forward at the time when I was ready to do, I had done my work, and it was a time for me to step into a new role for myself, not like how I identify as a professional, but a new role as who I am and how I show up in the world.
Oh, that was, I really was, that was really digging that. That's really nice there. I kind of, because that's in a way that's everyone is trying to find that, or we would perceive that from what people would tell us, is kind of shutting out the layers. And it seemed like it took you, almost 20 years to find what you was really looking for from the beginning, or what was right for you. You probably didn't know what was right at that time. And you also had to go through that in order to get to that point. So it's like, you couldn't just skip ahead to, what you're doing now, but you had to go through. And if life says it's going to be a year for some people it may take 20, that, you have to just be self-aware and just find out what your values are, what you want in life. And then, settle on that, instead of saying, I want to do what society wants me to do. And then you end up being happier, because it maybe end up being less, or maybe something that's totally outside of that industry that you were doing in the first place. So that's just a really awesome story, and how it kind of concluded together. And that kind of led you to kind of creating your thesis through your book, kind of, so you can help other people to identify, become more self-aware. You mentioned kind of doing also classes and stuff like that to help others, because I know a lot of people constantly battle with that. Can you just share some other stuff that maybe we then cover that's in your book that also helps others as well?
Sure. Yeah. So I wrote the book exactly for the reason you said. Like, I got to this point where I realized how I've been able to achieve today a life that it's not free of challenge, right? It's like, that's not how it works. There's always going to be something, but a life that I feel reflects and resonates with what's valuable to me, and a life that I am far happier in, if you will, because it's a happiness that comes from being able to choose what I want and not be so reactive to things that feel like it's out of my control. So in a way, it's like I feel more in control, even though we don't, even though like the whole paradigm of control is like, it's like a whole other topic. But when I wrote my book, I wrote it because when I went through the burnout, and I also went through a really deep awakening, and I was able to understand, like, my intuition started to wake up, and some like other senses and just parts of me just really started to wake up, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. As I was like struggling with, who am I if I'm not this successful person? Nothing I'm doing is working. This is not what I'm used to. And I didn't know who to talk to. And so I ended up going into some deep, like, mystical studies, and trying to, and like, I went the other direction because nobody let's call it on the business side, I didn't have anybody that could relate. As I was just like, I was a mess. Like, I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I wrote the book because once I came out of that cycle with the clarity that I had, I understood that there are a lot of people, let's call them working people, or people that identify in business. I mean, so many of us, whether it's an entrepreneur, an executive, any kind of like, working parents, whatever you want to call it, that there might be this fear of, like, I'm waking up, something's changing. I'm not who I used to be. I don't understand. and I don't know who to talk to. And I'm not really that interested in becoming a yoga teacher, or, that stuff might not really resonate with them. Right. And so I wrote this book that has so much of my story of how I figured out how to bring those two worlds together. So like the science and the spirituality, and also the story. And what it ultimately comes down to is an integration and a trusting yourself, and like knowing where to go in yourself to find the alignment. And I call it inner authority. And so the book is a kind of like a manual for people who might be going through something, and they're starting also to realize, super important, that there are parts of us that we've left to the side because society says that's not, it's not okay to bring that part of you forward, or like you can't show up this way in business, and all of that's out the window. All of it is out the window. You have to be whole and complete, and you have to honor every single part of yourself, including your intuition. Super important, because if we're not listening to ourselves, and the reason I call the book Productive Intuition is because intuition allows you to be more efficient and more productive. If you trust yourself and you're not always like asking other people what they think and asking for permission and doing all that stuff, like you're so clear, you're clearing out all the, when we talk about mindset stuff, you're clearing out all the beliefs and the conditioning and like these spells that society has put on us, and finding your truth. And it's just so much easier to manifest and to create, because you don't have to deal with all this like noise outside. And then you have more creativity, you have more inspiration, you feel more complete. And ultimately that's what the book is about, is helping you find that place. And it's a place of such strength and power. And I really want everybody to feel that. And I don't want them to feel alone, like I felt alone. And that was, I birthed this book because I had to go through what I went through. So I don't regret it at all. I mean, like you said it really well. Like you have to go through what you go through to arrive at a new level. And so this is for me a way of, potentially reaching others who are in a similar space, and they might not know how to understand that, or they're just looking for more support because they see that they're pulling themselves together. And it's from the perspective of somebody that's very aligned with being a business person. And I still am. I didn't go become a yoga teacher. I didn't go become a monk, but I understand so much of that. And I want to bring it in a way that makes sense and isn't just like too far out there, but really supports this like emerging consciousness, which is at the heart of the law of attraction. It's just using your consciousness in a focused manner to get what is aligned to your like deepest desires.
Yeah, very well said. I like that too, because again, it comes down to, completing yourself. 'Cause I think overall, if everyone is able to kind of tap into their potential, what makes them happy, and ultimately everyone benefits, because then we'll end up having services and products and stuff and creativity and things that we would want, fill different needs for other people. And ultimately everyone rises up and benefits, because then we end up new projects, new experiments. We can go to the moon, we can go to different planets and stuff. If everyone ends up finding their best thing for them that completes them, so it can kind of unleashes their maximum potential. So I kind of like that angle there, because something that everyone can benefit and truly needed in the world. So that's awesome. And then that's great. And we'll make sure to have the link to your book in the show notes so everyone can kind of get a copy of that. But can you talk about your what you're currently working on? You are with a private equity firm, just to kind of touch on for our real estate folks that kind of want to learn about the investing side. What are the type of assets that you guys work on, or sponsors you work with as far as your private equity business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. And here's the thing, like one of my big realizations was I love business and I love finance and I love real estate. Like I love the structuring and the deals and the networking and the raising capital. It's like, why wouldn't I do that? Like, why wouldn't I do that? Just because I, have found more of myself So that was like a huge thing for me, which, which is why, like, when I met my partners and I joined, it was just like, it was just really aligned. And so anyway, so it's really important because I went through so much to get here. And our success is really from this alignment. So we're a private equity firm. So on the sponsor side, you can think of us as an LP that comes in. We're writing on average $3 to $5 million checks, a lot of times more, but let's say that's the average. We're investing in operators or sponsors who have at least $500 million of transactional experience or assets under management. So like quite a little like what we consider to be institutional, and obviously like decades of experience, for the most part, for somebody who has that kind of a portfolio. And that's going to be in the multifamily space, senior living space, affordable housing space, anything that's needs based. That's what we're focused on. It's going to be value add. So no ground up development, like cash flow day one. And we raise that capital from our private capital network. So, we sit in between the sponsor operator and a network of investors who, they pool capital. So we're syndicating that LP equity out to them. And those investors, Alpha is an invite only or referral and recommendation based platform. Those investors are professional investors, high net worths, ultra high net worths. And, we have like a very relationship oriented approach to our investors and to our sponsors, so that we have this recurring capital relationship. So the relationship piece is really important. And, as like whether you're speaking to a sponsor, you are the sponsor speaking to your investors, you have to earn their trust. And so you have to be able to be, as I like to put it, like really authentic and really vulnerable, just really open, because you're building trust with these people. And so you can't go around being like, oh, look at me, I'm perfect, I have this perfect track record, nothing ever goes wrong, I'm going to give you the best returns. Like,
Exactly.
Everybody's over that. Like, that we know it's not true. So, just to be more authentic, to be more you. And I found it really successful for me because I have, like me as a brand, let's say, I have this book, I do workshops about like empowering yourself through story. That's what I do personally because I love it. I also mentor MBA students. I help people, a lot of women that are raising capital or starting companies or venture stuff. Like, I love to give back in that way. And then over here as Alpha, all of that comes together because people understand, and there's a transference of trust from me to Alpha, and that's really important. And I wouldn't be able to achieve that if I didn't know myself so very deeply, and if I didn't honor the other things that are interesting to me that make up, who I am. So I feel like there's this like pulling it all together. And like you were saying, you like to talk about personal development on the show and mindset and law of attraction and all that kind of stuff. And that, yes, because we like, that's really important and it resonates with people. And it's not just like, here's the technicalities of a deal. I mean, yeah, we can talk about that. But what's more interesting is like, who are you?
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Very well said. Yeah. It's definitely because of all of the elements of capital raising, because you're dealing with humans, it's not business to business. You're dealing with other humans, and they want to know, like, and trust you. And they know that everyone's flawed in some way. They have, different things that didn't go right and stuff. And if you're vulnerable and you tell people like, this is it, this is real, but they, appreciate your candor and your honesty, but also, you also have competence. You have a long track record of success in running things. And as long as they trust that you'll be able to be a good steward of their money, then, you can take it to the next level on the investing side. So that's awesome. Great to hear that. And I always have a section in my interview process. So I always ask the guests just to learn a little bit more about them. Because like I said, I always love mindset and productivity. Can you kind of take us through a typical workday? And do you have any special morning routines?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So for me, always in the morning, I like to have a lot of time to myself. So my primary practice is self-reflection and journaling. So I try to spend some time like either in meditation or in reading something that's inspiring, like let's say a Michael Singer book that I'm reading right now, Untethered Soul. It's a great book.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it just activates like a different, that really conscious space. And so I take a lot of time to self-reflect and do, this, what I call inner work, which is really getting to know myself. And I'll be reflecting also on, maybe something that triggered me, like something I said, like just so much self-awareness. That's my primary practice. That'll come through, like I said, either in meditation or in reading texts that, speak to that. And I spend some time doing that in the morning, kind of like, kind of more chill in the morning, but not too much time. I used to have like a 3-hour morning practice, and it served me at the time when I was going through my awakening, because I didn't have space for very much else. But today, I'm so action oriented, and I'm kind of back in a very action oriented mode. And so I'll spend some time doing that, have my coffee, do my thing, and it just sets me up in a very centered way. And then I just go with my day. I mean, there's so much going on, so much exciting stuff, so much connecting, in a way with COVID, everything's virtual. So I'm actually like talking to way more people than I ever have all the time. And I'm on Clubhouse, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm doing podcasts, I'm just connecting. And I'm so excited to do it. And I think in a way, like I actually shortened my morning practice, because I'm so excited to get going, and like, who am I talking to today, and doing all these different things. So I just kind of get right to it. And what I've had to do is, from a productivity perspective, and I do this in my calendar, is I have to block off like time so that it doesn't get filled with all the phone calls and all the follow-ups. And otherwise, like I actually can't follow up with the people that I've connected with. So I create space in my calendar for breaks. And I need those to reset my mind. Like I can't do back to back investor calls. Like I need at least, like I need a good 10-15 minutes at a minimum to kind of reset, to check in on things, and otherwise I end up spending 5 hours at night trying to catch up on all the more admin stuff during the day. So I try to make space for it in the day, so that, in the afternoon, I can go for a walk. I live in the mountains outside of LA, so I can get outside with my dogs. So I'm trying to find this balance that otherwise I would be swept up in the action. So I try to find that balance between action and reflection, and pausing and eating a proper meal. All those things are super important, because if we don't take care of our body and our health, and I just went through a massive, unexpected health crisis in December, and it wasn't COVID, it was autoimmune related. It really showed me that if I don't slow down and stop regularly, that's all going to catch up, and it's going to make me stop. And I was out of commission for like 8 weeks. So I really say it from a place of not like warning, but I just went through it. And so I make sure to like schedule those times. So that for me, because now a lot of this, now a lot with Clubhouse and a lot of like evening Zoom meetings, like I could be on, 24 hours a day, honestly, with Clubhouse. But, like I gotta chill, like I gotta stop. Like I have to be able, even in the evening, to reflect on the day, and to reflect on my behavior, what went right, what went wrong, to breathe. It's so important to just stop and take it all in and have a reset, so that the next day I'm excited again, as opposed to feeling like this, frenetic, I'm behind. So that's, it's interesting. It's changed a lot, especially as I started getting better from what happened. It just flipped, and all of a sudden I'm just so busy. And so I have to be like really managing my energy and my time.
Yeah, I totally 100% connect on that. And like I said, I also was suffering from autoimmune, except from the foods and, gut and all that stuff. And like, you have to just pause and like reset. I like that you implement actual slots to, to take breaks or do it, break things up, because sometimes the solopreneur or the really high, time executive, they'll take things into the evening and ends up flowing into the evening where they can't reflect, they can't slow down. and the next time it feels like it spills over to the next day, and then you feel kind of messed up. And for me, I'm big with family. I gotta have, breakage for the family stuff, and sometimes you get caught up in like I gotta make something happen. And then if you just take your time, do all the elements, and be effective at during the time you do have work time, you can actually do, probably twice as much productivity if you think you're working 24 hours. So it's great that you kind of adopt the same habits there. That's awesome. So I kind of picked up that you're big into scheduling, which was kind of my next question of, any tools and stuff that you utilize. You mentioned journaling and meditation and stuff like that. So that's great. I know a lot of people we talk a lot about that for people to kind of really tap in and then really, maximize their potential. And then finally, I'd love to, you had mentioned that you're really a deep thinker, self-reflection and things like that, very self-aware. Can you kind of talk about, gratitude? What are you most grateful for?
Oh my goodness. Gratitude changed my whole life. Like I had really deep experiences because I understood gratitude intellectually for a really long time, like the gratitude journal, and I could never connect to it. Like even when I was young, when I was little, when I was a teen, I mean, it was definitely not where my teenage head was, and just could never do it. I was like, this is dumb. What are 5 things I'm grateful for? And it would always be like the same thing. I just didn't get it. And then when I understood it was on an embodied level, like everything about our consciousness and our intuition is in our body, and it's a state of being. It's a state of consciousness. And when I had that experience and it took over my whole body and I was just in my house and I was looking around and I realized how much I had. I mean, it completely changed me. And it wasn't a thought, it wasn't thinking, it wasn't linear, it wasn't words. It was this feeling that came out of my heart and it just took me over. And ever since then, I've understood that gratitude is a form of presence. And I'm just so grateful to be here, to breathe, to be alive, to be healthy right now, to have the support that I have, the people that I have. Like I have everything. I might continue to strive and we do things and I do it because it's exciting and fun. And what if we did this? And what if we could make more money over here? But it's not from a place of lack. It's from a place of gratitude for everything that I have already. I have it all. And because I have it all, my energy when I put it out there isn't something I need or something I'm lacking. It's an energy of giving. It's an energy of service. It's an energy of joy. And that all actually stems from gratitude. And so that's also part of my reflection that we talked about, like whether it's the evening or the morning, is actually just breathing into how abundant I already am. And that for me really equates with the gratitude for how much I have.
Absolutely. Yeah, very well said there. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And also, as we end, like I said, we always share and blast this out to our network. But what's the best way we can get in contact with you?
So the best way to find me is probably maybe for this audience on LinkedIn. So you can just put my name in Adapia. I pop up everywhere. So any social media platform, I'm going to be the first, probably the only person that pops up. So, just put my name in there, whatever the platform is. I use LinkedIn a lot professionally. I use Instagram and I'm on Clubhouse a lot. Like that's really become my other touch point. So, those are platforms to come and find me. And I would say start there, message me, DM me. And if anybody's interested in the book, it's available on Amazon, or actually it's available everywhere if you want to support local bookstores and whatnot. And there's a website, productiveintuition.com as well.
Adapia, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I love talking to other like-minded individuals and share your knowledge and story and experience with our audience. I know a lot of people get a lot of benefit out of that. Blessed to you and the family, and look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thanks, Dwaine. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Thanks.